So, firstly, to welcome you all to our second Mental Health Recovery Grow podcast. My name is Sheila Tracy, and we are here tonight to talk about how important it is for us all to remain connected to our friends and family during this COVID-19 challenge. We're delighted that you're listening in, and we really hope you find the next 20 or 30 minutes beneficial and of help at this very, very strange time. As I said, we're going to be discussing how important it is for our connections, our human connections with other people to be maintained. And we know that COVID-19 has really made this a kind of a challenge for us, and we've needed to get creative in the way that we keep connecting, because we're being quite restricted in our normal ways. Tonight I'm joined by three guests who are very much GROW program experts, and they've lived the GROW program over a number of years, and are here to tell us how, when they've dealt with situations where isolation has been a problem, what kind of I suppose GROW wisdoms or gems they love to go back to get them through tough times. So firstly, I have Jerry Cronin from our southern region, who is an area coordinator. Then we're also joined by Chris Fitzgerald, who is part of GROW in our Limerick office. And then we also have Christine O'Neill, who's with GROW in our Rathout group in Meath. So you're all so welcome to join me here.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. Great to be here.
Good, good. So I suppose, firstly, Jerry, I'll come to you first. You've been area coordinator based down in Kerry, and you would, I suppose, deal with isolation would be kind of a normal, everyday thing for a lot of our members down there. And what kind of things do come up for you as challenges with isolation, and how do you help them deal with that, or how do the group support them in that?
Yep, it certainly is, Sheila. Isolation is huge in all parts of rural Ireland, probably, but especially in Kerry and West Cork, where I live and work. And I suppose that loneliness is probably one of the greatest issues there is in people living down here, living alone. And it certainly is a huge issue in mental health.
Yes.
In rural Ireland, and indeed in the towns, you know, it's always said, you can be very, very lonely in the city, and you can be quite comfortable with your own company in the countryside or even in the desert. But yet loneliness and a perception of lack of support are two big issues. And they are what we deal with, really.
Okay. And is there, I suppose, in a GROW group, when somebody comes and they say that this is a particular issue, is it the rest of the group that kind of give them the support and the nudge to force them to connect with people, or to find a way of working through the isolation, or how does that normally work?
Yes, it certainly is, and I suppose that is what the GROW groups are about. They're about the group and about the individuals in the group. My role would not be to offer advice or offer one-to-one counselling to anybody, but I'm there to support the group. Yes. I suppose I'm there to work with the existing leadership, but it's not just the leadership that encourage and support and advise people, it's the whole group. I suppose, we are peer support group, you know, we're a rural and urban community mental health peer support group. We're there to support one another, and when somebody comes in with an issue, one of isolation and loneliness especially, it's one we've all heard before, and it's one a lot of us have dealt with before. And we can empathise, and we can recognise what the person is experiencing. We can offer our own experiences. We can offer bits of program, a lot of wisdoms in our program book, the Blue Book. So yeah, it is the group that responds to the person.
And I suppose, Jerry, there's even a comfort in knowing that the group have faced those challenges too, that yes, you might feel isolated, but it's a normal feeling, and everybody has periods of loneliness at different stages.
You're with people, once you come in the door of a GROW group, you're with people who understand you. There's always somebody who has experienced something similar to what you've experienced.
Yes.
Maybe not in the exact same way, but they do know what it's like to be isolated, to be alone, to be depressed, to be down, to be hopeless. as we say, hopeless, hapless, and helpless. Everybody in a Grow meeting will recognise that when you talk about it, and they're all there to help, and they understand very well what it's like to feel like that.
Yeah, very good. And Chris, I think I'll come to you next. Just in terms of, I suppose, your journey to mental health and exactly, you know, the challenges that you faced, and I suppose the wisdoms that you've learned along the way. Could you give us a little bit of a bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, I suppose, Sheila, I've come full circle in my Grow journey and in my life journey. I came to Grow for my own needs quite a long time ago when I got back on my feet, which I did fairly quickly, because with the support and the wisdom of Grow, and most importantly, the people I met at Grow, I got back on my feet, you know, fairly quickly. I began to volunteer for Grow. I went on to work for Grow in many, many different roles throughout the years. I don't think there's a hat I haven't worn in Grow at some stage. And now I'm back as a volunteer. But I suppose first and foremost, I'm a member of Grow. And when we talk about isolation, like, isolation is very personal to us when we're going through that difficult time, because I suppose there is that, aside from the isolation we're talking about today during COVID-19, there's that personal isolation that one feels when you think that nobody understands you and that you're alone in something. And you can be surrounded by lots of people, and lots of good people, as I was in my difficult times. You know, I had 12 brothers and sisters, I had a great husband, had loads of friends that were really willing to support me, but it was I who isolated myself, because I felt nobody's going to understand what I'm going through here. So that very personal isolation as well. And I know we will talk about the isolation that all of us are experiencing today later on, but yeah, that isolation and breaking out of that isolation.
Yes.
Like, for instance, going to a Grow group or reaching out and just telling somebody you're in trouble and looking for that support. And that's how we break out of that isolated place that absolutely cripples some of us.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that, Christine. And now, Christina, you might just, I suppose, introduce yourself. And I know I mentioned you're from the group in Rathout, but just, I suppose, a little bit of background to your journey and what you found Grow has helped you with.
Well, I'm with Grow now for the last 16 years, but it's back in the 16 years that my story started, when I ended up in Navan Hospital after trying to commit suicide. And like what Chris was saying there about the isolation, it was like I isolated myself from friends and family because I felt, you know, I'm a burden. Nobody should be having to take on my problems. But it came to a huge crunch then when, you know, just an ordinary day up in Dublin visiting family, and on the way home I just felt, no, can't take it anymore, and I just floored the car. And like that, there was a wall at the end of the road, and I was just heading straight for it. But thankfully somebody was with me and pulled my foot up off the accelerator, and I turned the corner and came home. But I ended up then in hospital for 12 weeks after that. And for the first 7 weeks, I didn't want anybody near me. I didn't want visitors. I didn't want anybody near me. I didn't even want the staff near me.
Yeah.
I literally wanted to be left on my own. So I self-isolated in that sense. But Grow came in then and gave a talk, and it was in when somebody gave their story that my story was in it. And I just said, do you know what? There was a nurse there now who was, I think she was way before her time. She just saw that there was something in getting somebody to recover. It's not just medicine, it's, you know, they can go hand in hand. So she brought me to my first Grow meeting the following Tuesday, and I haven't looked back since. And like that now, my isolation would have been, I didn't want to go out in public because I live in such a small rural town. Everybody knew everybody, so they knew I hadn't been around for a while.
Yes.
So I just felt I had a big sign across my head saying, you're mad, you know, you've been in a mental institution, therefore keep away. And it's reminding me just of now, you know, with COVID-19, it's like unclean, keep away. So, but I put myself into that.
Yeah.
So the task I was given by my group when I did go to it was just to go out once in a week, not to do the 7 days, just 1 week, 1 day in the week, and to use people that mind don't matter and people that matter don't mind. So when you say that for the first time, it's a mouthful, and you're kind of going, these people haven't a clue what I'm going through, you know. And I just said, right, well, I'll give it a go.
Mhm.
But I'd say it took a month for me to be able to walk outside my front door without feeling that I had this sign across my head. And therefore, it did break that isolation cycle, because yes, I had great family and I had great friends around me, but it was me that needed to act for myself to get myself out of that isolation from keeping away from family and friends. So the grow group that I went to at the time was actually in Navan,
Okay.
and they just encouraged me so much, and so much so that I was able to, you know, take on little tasks each week. But my backstory is a little bit more. It's just that I was in an abusive relationship, but it actually helped me to work my way through that as well, because like that, the isolation I felt when everything was my fault,
Mm.
you know, that things are the way they are at home because of me. But through the program and through getting your little tasks and your piece of the program, you realize, okay, I do have a value here. I am a person. I can do what every ordinary person does. So that's why my group is so important to me. And that's why I still use it today, even though, you know, my mental health would be a lot better than what it was. But I still have my dips, even going through the coronavirus now at the moment. I do have my things that wobble me a bit. Once I go back to my little blue book, it's full of wisdoms, and it's like my little Bible. I keep it with me no matter where I go. When I have a stumble, I'm able to pick it up and read whatever I need to read. So, you know, that's kind of where I am now today. Like I do, you know, keep going back to my little blue book.
Brilliant. And that's, I mean, Christina, that is just there's so many bits in that story that I think we can all take something from. I mean, that first meeting that you just happened to be involved in, and somebody else's story reflecting how you were feeling, and then the courage that, you know, that task, being given that task every week, and you feeling, I have to do this for the group, but it must have taken so much courage to actually face the
Oh,
you felt
ab-
that
absolutely. Because like when I was in the house, it was my little safety net, you know, like no one can touch me, even though I had, like, my mom came to stay with me to help me with the kids and that. But, you know, if I didn't go outside that door, I didn't have to face anything. I didn't have to stand up and be a person. I
Yeah.
could just hide.
Yeah.
But because I wanted to get my life back and I wanted to feel like I had 3 small kids at that stage. So I couldn't be a mother if I was going to stay in the house all the time. I couldn't, you know, what am I showing them if I don't try and take back my life and try and, you know, do the best I can for them.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, it wasn't just for them. I needed to do it for myself, you know. And I have to say, there's loads of different wisdoms I could use, you know, just literally take 1 day at a time, you know, and just, you know, it has helped me so much. That's, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today without Grow. I really
That's
wouldn't.
brilliant. Brilliant. And Jerry, I think you wanted to pop in there and add something to that.
Yes, and I was so slow to interrupt Christina because she was speaking so well and really explaining how the group served her. And there was something in my mind while she was speaking, and it is that we go to grow groups for help.
Mm-hmm.
And we find that it is by helping others that we get that help. So in other words, there are people in there who really, really want to help us. And by allowing them to help us, we are helping them as well to develop their leadership qualities and to have an input into somebody else's recovery. And there is a feel-good factor in that. So basically, I suppose the wisdom that comes to mind there, and it's in page 13 of our Blue Book, and for those that don't know, the Blue Book is our program book. It's really our Bible. It's on page 13 of the Blue Book. If you need help, help others. And to help others, let them help you.
Yeah, Perfect. Yeah.
And it's something that reminds me of when I'm in self-isolation at the moment, that I kind of think of people in the morning. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make, it's like a task. I'm gonna make 3 phone calls today, and that's gonna be done. And then I think of who are the people that I want to talk to for me, you know, that'll make me feel better, that'll, you know, tell me jokes or keep my spirit up. But then I make 3 phone calls for who will want to hear from me, who might I be their positive person for today. So I think there's, you kind of, exactly what you're saying, Jerry, you give but you receive by giving, and it does just all round, we all feel better for it. So yeah, that's definitely one.
Yeah.
And so Chris, you had also mentioned that the challenges of family and, you know, spending so much time with our loved ones, and I suppose the pressure that that's going to put on relationships, because it's just not a norm that we're used to.
Definitely not, Sheila. And if we've ever heard the word unprecedented, then
Christine, I think we've just lost you a little bit on the sound. 1 second now. Can we? You've just frozen on us, Christine.
Yeah, we've all lost Christine there. Perhaps you should log out and log in again.
Christine, can you hear me there?
own personal lives, but this is on such a massive scale that something has been forced upon us.
Chris, just we lost you there, just literally just after you started your answer. You said the word unprecedented and then you froze, so you might just go back to there for us if you can.
Okay. What I wanted to add was that we had heard the word unprecedented so much over the past few weeks. And I would be a great believer in life has a habit of throwing things at us when we least expect it, when we think life is sailing along and we're all, do you know what, things are okay. And then suddenly we get a wallop of something unexpected. But this is on a massive scale. So for all of us, this is a very, very strange time. And, it affects us in so many different ways. It affects us physically, mentally, socially, financially, and all of those other things. It has touched all of us. And we are isolated. We are being told to stay at home. And that can be very, very difficult. But we must be creative in trying to find ways to deal with that. And I think for me, part of my program would be acceptance. Acceptance is a lovely word. I love the word acceptance, but it can be very hard to do.
Yes.
And it is one of the 5 foundations of maturity in our program, is to accept, because anything we don't accept, we fight against. And if we accept this situation, albeit very, very difficult for a lot of people, we will get through it. We will at least accept. And I think, as well as the isolation and the self-isolation and all of the other isolations that we're having to do, there's another aspect to that really, I would have spoken to you about it, Sheila. There's a lot of us forced into a situation at the moment where we have to spend time with a lot of people. And I say that with caution because my husband will probably listen to this. I've never spent so much time with my husband because, we're together 40 years, but we've always worked full time, and at weekends our families are around. And now we're forced into this situation where we're spending so much more time together. And that can put a strain on people, because I just remember on Sunday, I thought if my husband flicks over the channels once more, I'll stick the remote in his ear or something. Because we're together, this has been forced upon us.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be gentle, we need to be understanding, and we need to be accepting of what is going on around us at the moment. And that will help us to get through it. And those things aren't easy to do. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, I can just accept that my husband is driving me crackers. I can't, but I can find something to do. I can go away and I can pick up the phone. I can go out and bake a cake. I can go out to the back. And I would say to anyone that's finding it difficult, you know, if you're at home with lots of parents are at home with young children, lots of people, as Jerry touched on earlier on, are maybe at home with elderly parents, teenagers, you know, partners, whatever, that we have not ever been forced to spend this amount of time with. Find something, you know, we are very creative people. Any of us that have come through bad times, we have been creative in getting back on our feet and, you know, working towards recovery. Be creative now, find something to do. As I said, make that phone call, go out to the shed and have a quiet moment, do a little bit of meditation, you know, anything just to keep you, you know, grounded at this time.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think, Chris, what you're saying about there, accepting it, you know, just taking a step back and admitting that this isn't ideal and it's tough on, you know, everybody in a household. And it's also tough for people who have nobody with them in their isolation. So it's when I suppose we're all kind of using the, you know, we're all in this together, but everybody's situation is just that little bit different, or, you know, it's difficult. And I think you're 100% by saying we accept it and we can make the most of it. You then start to see some positives in what we have. That you know, there's some days I feel that it's like as if somebody has pressed pause on my life and let me stand back and look at what do I like about it and what don't I like about it. And there's a lot of reflection kind of time, and as you say, meditating and just enjoying getting to know what works and what lifts your spirit and what feeds you, as opposed to when life is so fast it just goes by and we don't get a chance. Jerry, you want to come in there again?
I do, because, you know, as you're speaking, I get lots of things are popping into my mind, and part of what Christina was talking about there was, you know, these unhealthy, persistent, invasive thoughts that we can have when we're alone, when we're isolated. And I suppose we must never forget, and again, one of the big Grow wisdoms is a friend is as near as the nearest phone, or as far away as the nearest phone. But I suppose it's important to keep contact, to follow sound advice and believe and trust what our friends tell us. I suppose the biggest problem we can make, and the biggest mistake we can make when we're alone, when we're isolated, is that we begin to completely rely on our own impressions, our own understanding of things, our own feelings. And sometimes if we're not in discussion with other people whom we trust and believe and depend on, our own impressions can sometimes be wrong when we're not discussing it with anything. So it's with anybody. So it's important that we do have conversations, even a telephone conversation with a friend, to discuss issues, especially in rural areas this time of year where it can be very hard. Animals are still inside, creating a lot of work. The costs of feeding them are rising. It's difficult to keep things clean. So we do get depressed. But we maybe should not forget that our nearest neighbour, who might be a mile away, is having the exact same difficulties. And it's good to sit down on the phone, or whatever, it has to be on the phone now, in the present climate, and have a chat and, you know, say, oh my God, I'm having the same problems as you're having. But this, as we say in Grow, this too will pass. And when we have, I suppose, crisis and anxiety and we're on our own, there are, and we talk in Grow about crisis management, there are 4 questions to ask. And they're 4 very simple questions. The first one is, what exactly am I troubled about? And when we answer that, we can ask ourselves, is this absolutely sure? Is it probable? Or is it only possible? And we ask next time, being wise, how important is this? And the most important question of all is, what am I going to do about it? You know, and really, we can have issues, we can have problems, but once we take a step to do something about it, we begin to solve our problem.
Absolutely. And it just takes so much sense when you kind of use it in that kind of 4 questions. And the last one being, what shall I do about it? So it nearly leads back into what you're saying about the task, Christina, where what will I do about it? And then you have a plan. So I know that there's a lot of people who maybe would have supported or dropped shopping on a weekly basis to elderly relatives, and, you know, what are we going to do now? But I suppose one thing that struck me is that the community around us, you know, on Post with their dropping, you know, the postman. There's so many good initiatives and so many volunteer programs that have come from a bad situation to show us kind of the good in the world and what is positive out there. Another thing that I've noticed is I look up at the sky now, and living in Dublin, you don't see planes, you see birds, and it's just so nice to have the sky so quiet and the sun is shining, our weather is gorgeous. So I think it's just about seeing, you know, that there is so much still going on that we can enjoy. Christine, you wanted to come in there?
You know, just what you were saying there, you know, I was only thinking today when I go out now for a walk in the morning, just, you know, to try and get a bit of air into my lungs and that. And like what you were saying, you know, there's, you know, the air is so fresh, and the birds and even the animals, like there's horses out in the field,
Yeah.
you know, and there's cows out in the field, and you find yourself that you stop, and like my kids think I'm mad, but you know, you stop and you go over to them, and you know, your life is not, oh, I have to get my walk done.
Yes.
And you know, get home and I have to do the iron, and I have to do the clean, and I have to do, you know, all the things. And I know before the COVID-19, like I had a list as long as my arm to get done in the house. And I have to say, you know, with my 3 children that I keep calling them children, but they're young adults, like they're all off work, you know, and my son, like he's giving me great help around the house, and I'm getting so much done, but I'm actually doing it at a leisurely pace, and I'm actually enjoying doing it. And I look forward to my walk in the morning now, because I know it's not going to be, right, get out and do it and get back and whatever, you know, it's just what will be. My day will unfold as it's going to unfold, you know. And I do think, you know, it is also important for us to have our own little time for ourselves, because I'm with 3 other adults in the house. You know, I do find that I do need to go off maybe to my own room, or go out the back garden, or anything, just so that I have my 5 minutes to myself, and I can think, or I can just, you know, and I don't have them fussing around me and, you know, Mom, you can't do that, or Mom, don't do that, you know. And
Yes.
just so that you can be with yourself, you know. And it just makes your day then that you can just get on and do things, you know. And yeah, I just find, you know, that we are noticing differences in our life, you know.
Absolutely.
And you know, it is great, and I think it is good for us to slow down.
Definitely
To slow down.
Jerry, I see you want to pop in there again.
I do, and again, there is so much I could stay going on this until tomorrow morning.
Yes.
But I suppose what I think it was Chris mentioned the birds there, you know, and it's something, a little exercise I did with one group last year, and it really broke any isolation there was from members in the group. We decided we would keep an eye out for birds at home. And, you know, just this time of the year is amazing. Right now, we've got our little native birds. We've got the wren, and my God, that little wren, what a voice. You know, the most beautiful, loud singing voice there is in the air, just a tiny little wren. And you have the robin, the little cheeky, friendly robin, an aggressive little fella, the robin. You have the thrushes and the blackbirds. They're basically the basis of our gardens at the moment. But I think, you know, if we were to, with a friend or a neighbour, keep in contact, I've got a wren, you know, or whatever, identifying the songs of the birds is fantastic, and discussing it on the phone with a neighbour. But in the next week or so, we will have an influx. The swallows will come, the swifts will come, the martin will come, the house martin will come. They'll all come. Somebody will hear a cuckoo for the first time. And when we did this little exercise, it was not an exercise, it was just a lovely way of communicating. Or why this for the next few weeks, we'll say in last year, I think it was the year before, my phone was written, you know, somebody had seen the cuckoo or heard the cuckoo for the first time and couldn't see it, and nobody seems to see the cuckoo, but we all hear him. But all the birds arrive, the whole bird scene changes. And what does that do? It brings us in touch with our senses, with sight and with sound. And that is what brings us into the present moment. And it takes us away from the dwelling in the past or worrying too much about the future. It brings us right into the present moment watching this. But it brings us into the present moment in a way where we're not getting too caught up in the present. You know, we're watching the coming, going, the birds. And I do think for anybody who's alone and that has, you know, somebody that they're in constant touch with on the phone, a lovely little thing to do is set up this conversation. What birds have you? What has arrived? Who's the first to see a house martin? Who's the first to see the swallow when he arrives, or the swifts? And look, it was the birds that prompted that rant from me, and I thought it was worth mentioning. Yeah.
You're absolutely right, and it's just nature all around us, and it's just to stop and take advantage of the fact that our lives have slowed down and we can notice things that we normally wouldn't have. Chris, I think you wanted to come in to add something there as well.
Yeah, Jerry, I just want to say I live in a house in the States, so I don't have the pleasure of seeing those beautiful birds, but I'm just thinking of it here. You know, and nature is a really lovely way of grounding us. And I think where we can, in these present times, we should be using that, you know, whole world that we have out there to ground ourselves. But I think it's very important, and I think, Christine, you touched on it earlier on, I think it's very important for us to use the word, to be creative now and to have a plan. And, you know, I remember when I was on my road to recovery, I remember getting a task to do 1 or 2 things every day that made me feel productive or made me smile. And I have been using that because I think, you know, any of us that have used the GROW program, or any of us that have used any program to help us back to recovery, we remember those things very clearly. And I have been using that because I can't go very far from my house. I can't be in touch with a lot of people because of a condition I have. And, you know, but I can go to the supermarket and get my groceries early in the morning. But I think every day, I think it's very important for all of us, make a little plan and, you know, put on that plan like we do in our progress report journal. Do 3 things today that make you feel productive or smile. And those 3 things, they're not like, I'm not talking about big giant steps. I'm talking about, you know, clean out an old press that maybe you haven't tackled for a while. Maybe tidy the yard. Just to give you an example, what I did the other day, having had 4 children who are now all in their 30s and they're gone. But my house, there must have been 10,000 CDs in my house. And I spent a day and a half chasing down those CDs because there was yards of my wardrobes taken up with these boxes of CDs. And I chased down all those CDs the other day. And I put them all into their proper cases. I dumped what we didn't want. And the feeling of that has been the job for 10 years that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I did that on Saturday and Sunday. And I was very, very proud of myself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that is some achievement. And you're right, there's some kind of satisfaction in terms of telling yourself that you're going to do 2 or 3 things and then going to bed that night and thinking, even if you only got 1 or 2 of them done, but the tick of that box just feels I am achieving things, and it's
I have
good.
done something today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jerry, have you've something else to come in
Yeah,
there?
I'm aware that I'd take you up time because maybe others want to speak as well. But, you know, Christina, doing that job, we all have, especially those of us that are living on our own or isolated, we all have that job that we're afraid to tackle. It might be just replacing that washer in the tap, or hanging that picture, or painting that garage, or painting the wall. You know, we have a saying, I would say, do it, get started, do it. And we have a very lovely wisdom in GROW. It's on page 22 of the Blue Book. If a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing badly while you're getting good at it, you know. So look, who cares if you make a mess of it? It's worth doing badly if it's worth doing it all. So I would say, yeah, there's a job there to be done. Make a start, have a go, do it. If you make a mess of it, no big deal.
Absolutely. No, that makes so much sense. And the minute you've started it, you kind of feel that little bit of sense of achievement, and the next day it's on the way. You know, I can pick it up where I left off. No, that's brilliant, guys. Would you believe we have actually run out of time? We've really, I think we've hit on a good few points there though, and I think I suppose our overall objective with these podcasts is to really bring home as many Grow wisdoms as we can, because our fellow members are missing the groups and missing the interactions, and we kind of are coming together on a weekly basis to try and have those chats and that familiar language, and maybe help people in the isolation with a few familiar voices. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. I have learned so much again this week, as someone who's very new to Grow. But I really enjoyed it, and I hope all our listeners will join us again for our next one next week. Also, if anybody does need tips as we go through the week, we have a lot on the grow.ie website, and we also have any crisis lines there should anybody need to reach out, or anybody need help. So thank you very much, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
Okay, stay safe,
Thank you,
everybody.
Sheila.
We don't actually have to log off though. We can have a chat. That's just our end of our recording. So
Woo-hoo.
brilliant, guys. That was great. Did you enjoy it?
Sheila, I was just about it. You sound like a seasoned grower.
Oh, seriously. I'm learning so much though, and I don't know which of you I was saying it to, that normally my house has to, there's 4 children here and it has to run pretty much military, and now I'm like, the chaos is just descending, and you know what? It's okay. Disorder is fine. So I've learned something in my 6 months.
Acceptance, Sheila.
Yeah, accept.
And what's that saying, Christine? Settle for disorder in little
In lesser things for the sake of order in greater things.
And that's one of the first things I think I heard in Grow, and I remember thinking, I can use this. There's so much in it. I suppose that's why I really feel like this is worth doing, because it's not just Grow members that can learn from our wisdoms. If somebody happens to stumble across this podcast and it helps them, we've achieved something,
Absolutely. Yeah,
But that was great. I think we're 4 naturals.
We should do it again.
We should.
Again, yeah.
That'll be our
We
task
should
for
just
next week.
do it for the crack.
Exactly. With a gin maybe next time.
Oh, it's so good to see faces.
Isn't it?
Isn't it? It's great to see other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen you, Christine, in ages.
I know. I don't think since sometime last year, Christine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
were
You're
you up
looking
there?
brilliant, though.
Yeah, listen, come here. I just have a kind of clean top to my t-shirt. The rest of me's in tatters.
Are we all in PJs from the waist down? Yeah.
Oh no, I'm actually in working clothes.
I actually came in from the
Very
farm.
crowded. I hope you have your pants on.
I was wondering, when I was changing the pants, I was wondering whether I need at all to put on.
I know. Yeah. That's it. We're all
I
getting
must say, if I may be so bold to you, Christina, hearing you talk and watching your expression of yourself, it certainly was hard to believe the content of what you were saying, and congratulations, and you're just an advertisement for Grow and for your own efforts.
Oh, it has helped me so much. Like, I've gone through so much with Grow, and the groups that I've been in, like my group in Navan closed and we went to Kells, and then Kells closed and then I went to Ratoath. But like all through that, my journey was, because I was living with an abusive husband, I couldn't see it at the start. I thought it was all my fault and everything was my problem. But when you realize that you actually have some sort of a personal value to yourself, and that you're not living your life just for my kids, like I know they were my main center.
Yeah.
But my group was able to let me see this, and I've gotten through so much with my Grow. That's why I would never say no to helping Grow, because it has done so much for me. And I always say, only for Grow I wouldn't be here today, and I have to say the people I've met along the way in Grow have all been brilliant. Like, I call it my Grow family, because that's what they're like. They're, they encourage you. And when you have to be challenged, you're challenged. And I love to be challenged, because sometimes we can get complacent and we can sit back and say, woe is me, I'm never going to get out of this, or I'm never going to learn. But we need that, excuse the expression,